Hello everyone. This is the Module 1 review, and we're going to go over all the things that will be on our Module 1 test, which will probably be given on Tuesday. And the test is going to include place value, powers of 10, standard word and expanded form of numbers, comparing decimals, rounding decimals, performing basic decimal operations, and applying knowledge of all of the above to word problems. Now, this review is going to take a while, so I'm not expecting you to do it all tonight. You can do a little bit tonight, you can do some over the weekend, you can do some Monday night. The important thing is that when I ask you to pause and work on your own, you do that. There's not a quiz on Edpuzzle. What's going to happen is I'm going to give you a chance to work the problems out by yourself, and then I will show you on the next slide how to get the answer. So first of all, let's revisit basic place value, and I want you to think about how can we make the number 35 and 2/10 with multiplication. And we're going to be multiplying by a power of 10, 10, 100, 1,000. I'd like you to make a place value chart on your scratch paper and figure out several different ways that you could multiply and end up with 35 and 2/10. So stop the video for a minute, make your place value chart, do some multiplication, and see how many different ways you can make this number. Here's one way you could do it. You could take 3 and 52/100 and multiply that by 10. Every time I multiply by a 10, every digit moves one place to the left. So if I multiply 3 by 10, I will get 30. If I multiply 5/10 by 10, I will get 5 ones. And if I multiply 2/100 by 10, I'll get 2/10. So 3 and 52/100 times 10 will equal 35 and 2/10. You may also have thought that you could take 352 thousandths and multiply that by 100, which would be correct. You could also do it that way. Okay, let's think about how we can make 35 and 2/10 using division this time. So we're going to use a place value chart, and we're going to divide by 10 or a power of 10, 100, 1,000, etc. So pause the video for a minute, get out your place value chart, and try to think of as many different ways that you can use division and a power of 10 to get 35 and 2/10. Here's one way of doing it. I could start with 35,200, and I could divide that number by 1,000. So let's see how that works. I'm going to, since I'm dividing by 1,000, which is 10 to the third power, and it's got 3 zeros, that means that each digit is going to move to the right. Since I'm dividing, it'll move to the right 3 places. So this 3 in the 10,000ths place will come all the way over here to the tens place. And this 5 in the thousands place will come over to the ones place. And the 2 in the hundreds place will head on over to the tenths place. And that means that my final answer will be 35 and 2/10, which is just what I was aiming for. And of course, there are several other ways you could do this. You could take 3,520 and divide it by 100, or you could take 352 and divide it by 10 to get 35 and 2/10. Next, we're going to use an area model to multiply 1 7/10 times 4. So I'd like you to pause right now and see if you remember how to use the area model without any help from me. And then you can turn the video back on and listen and see if you remembered correctly. If you don't remember how to use an area model, then turn it on and there'll be another place where you can pause in a second. Okay, so hopefully you remember that the single digit goes down here at the skinny end of the area model. And then I'm going to look at the other factor and I see that it has 2 digits, so I'm going to need 2 places in my area model. And I'm going to break this number apart according to the place value of each of the digits. So I have a 1 in the ones place, and I have a 7 in the tenths place. So I'm using unit form now. And then inside the boxes, I'm going to multiply. So I have 4 times 1, ones, and I have 4 times 7 tenths. And down below, I can write 4 ones. 4 times 1 is 4. And then I need to put a plus where this line is, because I want to add the things in the boxes together. And this is called the distributive property, which I'm using. I'm breaking the number down into smaller parts and doing the multiplication, distributing the parts. And then secondly, I have 4 times 7 tenths, which will be 28 tenths. And once I do that, I can change my word form or my unit form to standard form. So 4 ones is just 4, and 28 tenths is 2 and 8 tenths. And when I add those together, I get 6 and 8 tenths. Now I'm going to take the answer to the last problem and I'm going to write it in several different forms. We had it in unit form, which was 6 ones and 8 tenths, and of course that in standard form is 6.8 or 6 and 8 tenths. Now I'd like you to write it in word form. Pause the recording and go ahead and write the word form down on your scratch paper, which is going to be all the words that we say when we say 6 and 8 tenths. Okay, now it's time to check yourself on the word form. 6 and 8 tenths. All right, next we want to write it in expanded form. So pause the video for a minute while you write down the expanded form and then turn the video back on to check yourself. Okay, expanded form for 6 and 8 tenths will be 6 plus 8 times 1/10. On the module test, you're going to have to do 6 comparisons similar to this here. So you're going to use greater than, less than, or equal to. greater than, less than, or equal to compare two numbers or an expanded form of a number with the standard form, or maybe the word form with the standard form, or something like that. And you'll have a circle here. This is not a zero, this is the circle where you're going to put less than, greater than, or equal to. So I'd like you to go ahead and try to compare 4 times 10 squared plus 3 times 1/10 plus 1 times 1,000th to 40 and 301 thousandths. So go ahead and pause the video while you figure out that and turn it on when you're ready to check. Okay, here is how I would recommend that you do this. I do not recommend that you try to do all this in your head because it's really easy to make a mistake that way. And I actually reworked the test and spread all the problems further apart so you'd have plenty of room under each of these comparisons to show your work. So what you want to do is go through, and everything that's in a parentheses, you want to do that and then add it all together. So 4 times 10 squared is going to be 400, and 3 times 1/10 is going to be 3/10, and 1 times 1,000th is going to be 1,000th. And then I need to add them all together. And I would also recommend that that you don't try to add them in your head across, especially if you're not really strong spatially. Go ahead and write them all down and make sure that you have your decimal points lined up. Remember, this 400 is actually 400.000, and then I'm going to add the 3/10 under that and the 1,000th under that. And now I've got a 1 in the thousandths place, a 0 in the hundredths place, a 3 in the tenths place, a 0 in the ones, a 0 in the tens, and a 4 in the hundredths place. And now I'm going to compare this number to this number, which is 40 and 301 thousandths. Well, obviously 400 is much larger than 40. So the expression on the left is greater than the number on the right. Next, we're going to estimate the sum of 4.6, or 4 6/10, and 3 2/10. Now, when the word sum means addition, and it's important when you're estimating a sum that you don't just add them up and then round the sum. The point of estimation is to make the adding easier. So you want to estimate first and then add your estimates together. So what I'd like you to do is round 4.6 to the nearest whole number, round 3.2 to the nearest whole number, and then you'll add them together. You can use a vertical number line to help you, or these are fairly small and easy numbers. If you can do it in your head, that's great, but you may want to double check yourself with the vertical number line. I'm going to give you a minute, or pause the video for a minute, and then start it again when you're ready to check yourself. Okay, let's round 4.6 first, and I know that 4.6, or 4 6/10, is between 4 and 5. And halfway between 4 and 5 is going to be 4 5/10. Remember that 5 in the next place over is the halfway mark. And 4.6 is going to be just a little bit larger than 4.5. So I'm going to round up to 5 for this one. Label my vertical number line there. Okay, now I'm going to make a vertical number line for 3.2. And I know that 3.2 is in between 3 and 4. And of course, halfway between 3 and 4 would be 3.5, or 3 and 5/10. And 3 and 2/10 is going to be closer to 3 than it is to 4. So I'm going to round down to 3 for this one. So my last step is to actually find the sum. And I've got 5, 4.6 rounded to 5, and 3 and 2/10 rounded to 3. And when I add them together, I get 8. So the sum is about 8. Now we're going to find the actual sum of 4 and 6/10 and 3 and 2/10. So we're going to add again, but instead this actual means no, we are not estimating. We want to find the exact sum of 4 and 6/10 and 3 and 2/10. So I'd like you to go ahead and you can use a place value chart. You can use a standard algorithm, whatever works for you. Turn the video off for a minute, add them up, turn it back on when you're ready to check yourself and see how to do it. All right, here we go. I'm going to stack them on top of each other, 4 and 6/10 plus 3 and 2/10. And of course, I want to make sure that my decimal points are lined up, and that is because if my decimal points are lined up, then I know that the numbers that are on all the same places are also lined up. Tenths on top of tenths, ones on top of ones. So 6/10 plus 2/10 will be 8/10. 4/10 plus 3/10 will be 7/10. So the actual sum is 7 and 8/10. Now we're going to find the difference between 17 and 0/10 and 5 and 3/10. Difference means subtraction. That's how we find the difference between two numbers. Difference really means the space, how much bigger or how much smaller something is than something else, and the way to figure that out is to subtract. So you can use a place value chart, or you can use the standard algorithm. Pause the video, find the difference, turn the video back on when you're ready to check yourself. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make a place value chart for this one. I'm going to need tens, ones, there's my decimal, and I will also need a tenths place. And I'm going to have, for the first number, I have 1 in the tens place. I have 7 in the ones place. And I have 0 in the tens place. And then I've got to take away 5 and 3/10. 5 ones and 3/10. So I'm going to go back, and I want to cross off 5 ones 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I want to cross off 3/10, but I don't have 3/10. I don't have any tenths. So I'm going to have to take one of these tenths and move it over here. And now I've got 10 tenths. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I can cross off 3 of those. 1, 2, 3. Okay? And I'm going to just put an X through that one because I moved it away so I don't get confused. Now I'm going to go back and look, count up what I've got, and it looks like I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the tens place. I've got 1 left in the ones place, and I've got 1 left in the tens place. So my answer will be 11 and 7/10. And real quickly, for those of you who just use the standard algorithm, I'll do it over here on this side. 17 minus 5 and 3/10. I'm going to take one of my ones and turn it into 10/10. And 10 minus 3 is 7. I have a 6 in the ones place now, and 6 minus 5 is going to be 1. And 1 minus this invisible 0 in the tens place will be 1. My answer is 11 and 7/10, which is the same answer I got while using the place value chart. Okay, last but not least, we're going to try out a story problem. There will be several on the test, so it's important to read all the words and either draw a picture or make sure that you have visualized a clear picture of what's going on in your mind. So first of all, I'd like you to just look at this story problem. If I had 2 56/100 pounds of Halloween candy and I split it equally among 4 little ghosts, how much would each ghost get? So right now I want you to think about, okay, I've got that candy in a little bag. Those 4 little ghosts are coming up to my door and ringing my doorbell. I want to give each of the 4 little ghosts an equal amount of candy. And I want you to pause the video for a minute and just write the equation that goes with this story problem. Okay, hopefully you realized that 2 56/100 pounds is the whole, and I have to divide that into 4 equal parts. So what I'm working with is a division problem. Now I'd like you to pause again, and you can either use a place value chart or you can use the standard algorithm to actually do the division. Okay, I'm going to start off with the place value chart and then I'll relate it to the standard algorithm. So I've got 2 in the ones place, and I've got 5 in the tens place, and I've got 6 in the hundreds place. So I'm going to, as always, I'm going to start my division in the greatest place, which is the ones place. And I see, I don't have enough over there to divide by 4. So I'm going to turn the 2 in the ones place into 20 in the tens place. So now I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so I should have a total of 25 in the tens place. And I'm going to Go back and circle groups of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I've got this 1 left over. Now in the standard algorithm, that's going to be 2 and 5600ths divided by 4. And what I've done so far is said, okay, if I can get 0 4s out of 2. And so now I'm thinking about this 2 and as 25 tenths instead. I'm going to make sure I get my decimal point there. And I can get 4 into 25 6 times. 6 tenths times 4 will be 24 tenths. And when I subtract, I'll have 1 tenth left. There it is, right there. Now I'm going to take this 1 tenth, I'll move it over to the hundredths place. And that means I'm going to add 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on for a total of 16 in the hundredths place because there were already 6 there and I added 10 more. And I get 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of 4 out of it. Then I have nothing left over. So moving back to the standard algorithm, I see that I'm going to bring down that 6 to make 16 hundredths, which is what I had right here. I can get 4 hundredths, 4 groups of 4 hundredths out of that, which will be 16 hundredths. And when I subtract, I have nothing left over. So I get 64 hundredths in my algorithm and 64 hundredths when I use my place value chart. They match up. I know I am right. All right. I hope that you understood everything in the review. If there's anything you're still feeling shaky about, go back and watch it over again. Try doing it on your own and then checking yourself with the video. The more effort you put into making sure you understand this, the more likely you're going to get a really good grade on that test on Tuesday. Good luck.